Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for joining us today. My name is Beth Ingram, and I'm the Executive Vice President and Provost here at Northern Illinois University. And I also serve as treasurer and a board member for the ACAO, which is sponsoring this set of town halls. I'm going to make a few just brief remarks and then basically open it up. I have a few questions to spur conversation, but I think given that we're all provosts, we can probably do that on our own. So I've been at NIU for just about a year. I came in May of last year, but I was previously a provost at North Dakota State. And before that, I spent most of my time at the University of Iowa, and I'm an economist. That's my academic background. And when I was thinking about this, I was thinking how interesting it is to start at a new institution in the midst of a pandemic like this. And one of the effects of that was that I missed a lot of the really engaging activities that happened between May and June. Commencement, faculty achievement banquets, research presentations, poster sessions for our undergraduates. And so, for me, missing commencement, that's to me like the culmination of what we do. And so we had a commencement ceremony in May, and that was really hard. And meanwhile, I hired 2 deans who started July 1st, are totally meeting everybody through Teams, which is what we use. So I was recently talking to a group of colleagues, most of whom have been working, as you have, 80 hours a week since April or May, and the work just doesn't seem to go away. And as we were chatting, one of them commented, "I'd just like to know when I can get back to my regular job." And to me, the interesting question now is really, what is our regular job, and how has that changed in light of the global events that started well before coronavirus, but have been exacerbated by it, and the additional things that have happened. So the pandemic, the pivot to online, climate change and global warming, which has been on our minds for a long time, but also what happened with George Floyd this summer, and the call to have a focus on an anti-racist agenda. All of that culminating together into this time that we find ourselves in. And frankly, I've spent the last 2 days talking about students partying on campus on top of everything else. So, I think at its core, our mission is the same: to ensure success and access for our students, to support the creative and artistic endeavors of our faculty, and to provide satisfying careers for our staff. But how we do those things and how we succeed or not succeed in doing those things has really come under scrutiny. And I've never seen so many articles about higher ed in the newspapers as I have over the course of the summer. Every time a campus opens and there's a spike in cases, it's in every newspaper across the country. So what have I been doing? One of the things I've been trying to do is ask a lot of why questions. Given that we had to pivot, given that we've asked to start doing things differently, I've started asking why. Why do we do things in a particular way or according to a particular process? So last spring, we lifted all of the financial holds on all of our students so that they could re-enroll this fall. Right now, our retention rate is up about 10%, as you might expect. That's not sustainable though. So we have to figure out how to balance that short-term change that we made to respond to coronavirus with long-term financial sustainability. I've been trying to, one of the things that came out of all of this for us is that, at least on my campus, a lot of people have learned to work together in ways that they hadn't before. There's been a lot of collaboration and integration, which has been foisted upon people. They had to work together to get things done. And so, I think we've been talking about the silos in academia since I started over 30 years ago. And how do we break down silos and work across units? How do we get academic affairs and student affairs to work together? But what I think this has said to us is that we can do it. We found ways to do it over the last 6 months to work across silos and work together. But do we, 2 months from now, do we go back to doing what we did before, or how do we sustain that collaboration, which I think has been very, very valuable? How do we sustain that into the future? It's hard to do that. It takes time and it takes effort and it takes empathy and self-reflection, but I think that it's quite important. I think for me, the other thing is that COVID really surfaced a lot of the issues that were brought to the forefront in society by the protests this summer about inequities in what we do that might have been hidden before. Inequitable access to technology, to Wi-Fi, our policies that affect different groups of students differently. And so what we've started to examine is, you know, if we have something that has a racist outcome, how do we go back and figure out what we need to change to respond to that? And then the third thing that I've been thinking about is data-informed decision-making, because it's really easy when you're rushed and when you're tired and when you're trying to make decisions to rely on anecdotes and not to take the time to gather the data. So we respond to the last student who walked in, or the party that happened last night, or the Facebook posts, and to try to encourage my team to go back and look at the data and be data informed in how we respond to what's going on. So, and I think that in a time of disruption and uncertainty and risk, looking at the data and being data informed is more critical than ever. So I too am hoping to get back to my regular job. I'm hoping that that regular job isn't exactly what it looked like last spring. I think our jobs are even more critical in this time of disruption. People look to us from all sectors of the campus to figure out where our institutions are heading and what we're going to do to help them move ahead. I will continue to ask why and continue to insist that the right people are in the right rooms at the right time to make sure that our decisions respond to data, but also to making sure that we don't do things that exacerbate the real inequities that we see in our system. So that's what I've been thinking about and doing for the last several months. And I guess for you, I'd like to know what does it mean to you to get back to your regular job, and how does that look different? I'm going to open it up for questions at this point. Those were the only remarks that I had prepared. But in terms of that question, the one thing that has really been on my mind recently that hasn't gotten a lot of attention is our graduate students. They tend to be the lowest people on the totem pole on our campuses, or at least on my campus, for being, in our labs and in our classrooms. But also, as far as I can tell, their job market is almost totally dried up, especially on the PhD side. And so I'd be curious to hear about you from strategies that you have for supporting graduate students as well. So I'm going to quit talking at this point and just open it up to you, and whatever you want to talk about. And, what does your regular job look like?
Well, I'll say something. I'm Joan Neff, and I'm the campus provost at West Virginia University Institute of Technology. So we're part of West Virginia University, and there's also a community college, Potomac State, that's another part of West Virginia University. And we're fortunate, I think, that we have certain decisions that we can make as a campus that are different than Morgantown. So for example, initially, Morgantown was planning to bring back everybody in seat. We were planning to do the same thing. We only have approximately 15 to 1,700 full-time students at Tech, whereas there's, tens of thousands in Morgantown. So we were making plans to bring everybody back in seat. And then Morgantown, after they started bringing back their fall athletes, started to have spikes in COVID-19. And they switched to bringing back only graduate students and entering first-year students. Everybody else is online right now. We had permission to be able to stay with what we were doing, which was great, because we know that our students do much better when they're in seat. So some of the things, though, that we're dealing with are, students who want accommodations, not because they necessarily need accommodations, but because they just don't want to expose themselves to COVID in a classroom. So we're getting them approaching their faculty and saying, can't I take this online with you? Or can't you just, help me with it online? So we're trying to manage some of those things. But I think, in some ways, my regular job and what I'm doing right now are very similar. And I'm always kind of dealing with issues pertaining to how we do what we do with respect to students in the classrooms and working with the faculty and the deans and then the staff in terms of IT and the other areas that fall under my responsibility. I do think, though, that the thing that, and I should also say that my field of specialization is sociology, and also in particular within that criminal justice. So a lot of the things that have been happening in the United States for the past several months are, in my mind, critical reflections of where we are not in terms of where we need to be as a society. And I think that's going to be one of our big challenges going forward, is to work through our university systems to help make some of those changes and to work with our students in terms of how they can participate in lobbying and be part of those changes. Because we do need to do it. And even in the midst of a pandemic, we need to do we need to make those sorts of changes. And we can be very vocal, and our students can be very vocal advocates for social justice and racial equity and all the rest of the things that we need to make sure that we're actually paying attention to. But so in some ways my job has not changed, but in terms of COVID, just a different type of managing things. But I think the job ahead of us is something that really, in terms of equity and justice, is really something that we all need to think about long and hard, and how we promote that on our institutions and encourage our students, faculty, and staff to get involved in efforts to do that.
This is Sue Madison. I'm provost at Drake University, and I'm sorry I have a bit of a frog in my throat. I agree with Joan about the critical importance of looking at the equity and the justice issues. And my scholarly discipline is epidemiology. So honestly, this is fascinating to me. But within epidemiology, my field is looking at racial disparities in disease. So like Joan, I totally agree about the importance of that. We've been planning since March, as all of you have, to ensure that we are ready within each class to accommodate students who move in and out of isolation. Mm-hmm. And that is happening. Students have had the opportunity to choose all virtual learning, and we have about 17% of our students have chosen that. And we have also allowed our faculty to choose to teach all virtually, whether they themselves are immunocompromised, whether they're caring for someone. Our local, the Des Moines School District, I forgot to mention I'm at Drake University. The Des Moines School District is suing the governor to be able to be completely virtual. And so there are faculty with small children who, as of today, don't know whether their children will be home or not. So we have been as flexible as we possibly can to allow faculty to make that decision. So about 57% of our faculty have chosen to teach virtually, and that equates, with adjuncts, that equates to about 45% of our courses will be taught virtually. You know, large courses as well are just mandated to be taught virtually. So it's been a lot of work. And Beth, when you say, what is our job now? And as an epidemiologist, I'm just going to be the pessimist and say, this is our job. And it's kind of what it's going to be with regards to pandemic and the changes related to health, as well as the social justice and race issues. I think this is our job. And we know that the racial issues have been here forever. And you know, a lot of us have accepted that that's how it is. And I am just really excited and proud of the young people who are now saying, no, we just won't accept that. We're stepping forward and we demand different. And I, as an old hippie, I guess, I feel like that is really invigorating to campus as well. Thanks.
Other people like to comment? So I can tell you one of the other anxieties that's on my mind is what happens after the election. It feels like we've got a couple of months to prepare for what might be happening on our campuses. I think no matter what happens with the outcome. Is that on anybody else's mind?
Yeah, we're also on top of that having some issues regarding our police force on our campus and students and the whole perfect storm of things. So this is Betty Bergeron from SUNY Potsdam. So for example, we've had a police officer recently on campus working with a thin blue line kerchief on at a time when 2 weeks ago, the police force just had training on why the Blue Lives Matter or thin blue line was so problematic with our students and how it is seen by many as an opposition to support for Black Lives Matter. And yet he wore it anyway. So things like that are bubbling also, that the stress with the election just seems to heighten that as well. And then of course, all of the killings, was one, yesterday, another one, Wisconsin. So
Kenosha.
yeah. So it is, there's so much that's churning. And as somebody already said so eloquently, the whole issues of COVID have really also made us think about how the pandemic is revealing so clearly the many injustices and inequities that we have within our systems. So there's just a lot right now churning and dealing with, for me at my very small institution, financial stress for the institution is also on top of it.
I assume everybody else is concerned about finances as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not just Betty and me.
Absolutely.
Phew, I feel better. We have so much oversight here that literally almost everything has to go to our SUNY system for approval. So we need to hire in adjuncts as we know what our enrollment is, and we need to know, well, adjuncts have to go to SUNY for approval, and they're taking forever. So classes start in a few days and we don't know yet our full roster of staff. Just that kind of frustration and stress in addition to everything else. Certainly understand why SUNY needs to do it, but I'm just saying, OMG. Yeah.
We have a question from Mary Boyd, who's listening in. How do you keep going when you're exhausted and your people are exhausted? And I think, can we all just agree that we're all exhausted first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then the question, I think it's a good one. How do we keep going and then the people around you are exhausted too?
I mean, I'm not sure, I don't think I have a good answer to that. But one of the things that I try to do, at least for the people that work for me, because I have, IT, I have library, I have the registrar and so forth, in addition to the faculty and the deans, but is to acknowledge every single positive thing that anybody does. Is just to remember to say thank you, or I appreciate the fact that you took care of that. And I think, our people, the people I work with are good people and they take pride in what they do. And because again, we're a smaller institution, there's a great deal of caring about the students. And so, they do what they do on behalf of and for our students. So the fact that they get acknowledgement for that, they don't get any extra pay, but they get acknowledgement for it. There's something to be said for just recognizing that people are tired, but they're putting forth extra effort to get. We had our IT folks have done a fantastic job of putting up cameras in the classrooms and even holding training sessions for the faculty on how to use the equipment that's now in their classrooms that wasn't there in May. So just making sure that they know that I think we support them and we also value the things that they do, helps them get push past, or push through some of the exhaustion that many of them, like our IT folks, I think are almost toast by now, but they just keep going and they keep doing. So to me, that's an important part of what we do, is to just keep saying, great job.
BJ turned his camera on for a second, so I thought maybe you had some insight, BJ. I don't think your audio's on though.
Yeah, since I've been retired for, over a year now, I meet periodically with my successor here at University of Nebraska Omaha and talk to him about kind of what the challenges are. They're very consistent with what I've heard. We were lucky to have a pretty good online synchronous, asynchronous capacity when all this happened in March, and we're able to gen up. Interestingly, the ones that had the most challenges are the ones you would expect: chemistry, who said there's no way we can do this, and found out there actually was a way to do it. So that genning up this summer, they were able to have both synchronous, I guess the new term Doreen taught me about was HyFlex, and being able to do synchronous both in class and at a distance at the same time. And they can do that as well as the traditional kinds of virtual learning. Classes just started Monday, so they've had 5 confirmed COVID cases so far that they've identified, but they're not. They're isolated. They're doing the tracing that you would normally do. We have thanks to the medical center, which is a very close partner with us, they've able to set up a testing site right on campus, which is proved very valuable for dealing with any issues that appear. Obviously, fall sports here have been put on the back burner, so we don't have other than them working out on their own, we don't have that issue confronting us. We're Division I, but don't have football, which is also very beneficial to us in terms of what we deal with. He said, I just had a coffee with him last week, and he said they were anticipating more students on campus than I had thought. They are aiming for 50%, 60% of the students to be on campus, of which, depending on how you count, about 30% of the classes. Graduate, interestingly, enrollment is up fairly significantly, 5% in student credit hours, and over 10% in graduate student credit hours, which came a bit as a surprise to me. While a number of the smaller institutions, I think, are struggling quite a bit in terms of how they're dealing with COVID, both in terms of enrollment and in terms of how they deal. We're in a system, so we tried to be as much in lockstep as we could with our campuses, Lincoln campus and Kearney campus, and of course the medical center campus. But there are some differences in the issues that they're facing and the issues that the Omaha campus is facing. So it's a little early to tell how this is going to play out. We've beefed up the counseling and mental health services for students, just in anticipation that we were going to have some issues. The residence halls are open. They had moved in last week and the week before. So managing those issues, we haven't had any, to my knowledge, haven't had any significant outbreaks of wild and crazy parties. So of course, we're a metropolitan campus, so our students tend to be not as shall we say, exuberant in some cases as maybe some other campuses have been, especially those that may have sporting events going on and that sort of thing. So that's a kind of an overview of where we're at, and I'm trying to keep track with faculty and with academic affairs folks just to see how it goes.
You know, one thing we've started doing just in my team is just figuring out what we should stop doing. So things that we would normally be working on, and can we push them off? Can we delay them? Let's get some stuff off our plate, because it's too much to do all of the things that you would normally expect to do and keep going, you know, not be totally exhausted. You know, on the negative side, the sad part is that for the next couple of months, I would have been going to events. You know, I would have been meeting students and the new faculty, and I would have been having the new faculty for breakfast. And so some of the things that have gone off my plate are not things that I really want to be off my plate.
Beth, you know, I might add something that it's related to what you all were just talking about with you know, my team expressing loss of control, you know, of their day. And one request they made, it was interesting, was, you know, can we have a day or a half a day which we designate as no meetings? Because what they're finding is that with Zoom, they're just on so many meetings they can't get any work done. And so I said, sure, go ahead, but it wasn't enough. They still felt like they couldn't do it. And so we instituted trying for the month of August, and I don't know if you could do this fully, but it has made such a difference that Monday is no meeting day, where only emergency meetings, if you have to have them. I mean, it doesn't preclude, you know, meetings, but Monday is work day, and everybody, including me, now I have to be on other meetings, you know, not just academic ones, but I get so much done on Mondays now. And it has changed the mental attitude of a lot of folks, because they feel like that's their time where they can think, write, organize. And, you know, something so simple has really impacted the mental health, you know, of some of the academic teams. Now, some of them are having meetings anyway, but they have the option to block their calendar and get work done. And that's what I kept hearing. I can't get any work done with Zoom. You know, I'm just on Zoom all the time, and this one wants me and that one wants me, and I'm planning and responding and problem solving, and I can't get my work done. And honestly, this period of time for no meetings to work, and they're all working, I know they are. I mean, they're sending out emails and getting things done, has really helped. And I
Hey,
think
Connie, can I ask you a question about it? So did you tell everybody else, my team will not do meetings on Mondays, or this was like an internal?
No, good point. I told the leadership team, hey, everyone's starting to lose their minds a little. You know, we're going to do this for August. And I didn't say it was permanent and we'll see how it goes. But I told them that they needed to block their calendars. You know, if you don't manage it through your calendar, then, and so the leadership team understood, you know, because everyone is feeling stressed. To Mary's original point, we all are. And again, people will meet if they need to, but as a, you know, recurring protocol. And I tell you, I look forward to Mondays now because I get work done and I'm not like on meetings all day, and just that little bit. And we only said for August, because I didn't want to say this is the rest of the year. Let's try it out. But so far so good. So I just throw that out because that was their suggestion, but they wouldn't do it unless I formally sort of said, yeah, we're doing this. Even though I said, yeah, go ahead and do it. They didn't feel like they could. So I just, you know, I think we all feel beholden to everyone at this point, right? to whatever's coming up. So throw that out.
I wrote that one down. That's my idea.
But yeah, so like it's something to get work on,
Yeah.
not be on meetings, you know.
You know, the most disappointing thing is when you look at your day and you think, geez, you've got an hour there, and like 2 hours into the day, that hour disappears. Like somebody comes in and puts themselves on your one free hour. So I guess, you know, another question of the group is, what are you doing to keep yourselves sane?
Why do you assume we're staying sane?
To approach sanity, Gail.
Oh, okay, that's different. Well, I'm going to start with the thank you, Connie. No meetings on Mondays. That would be very helpful because in addition to Zoom having taken over our lives, people aren't giving you a break between meetings. If it ends at 10, the next one ends at 9:59, the next one begins at 10 because there's no travel time. And so people schedule that while you're sitting there, so they might as well start the meeting. So I think I'll work on no meetings a day and no back-to-back meetings any day unless required, because that's driving me batty. Otherwise, you know, I keep trying to read things that don't have anything to do with work and work out as much as possible and keep my sense of humor. I'm not sure it's working, but if I don't do some things for myself, independent of the work, I won't be any good. So it's a struggle. That's a good question, Beth.
I have a kitten that likes to snuggle, so those few times I can go home and sit down for a few minutes, there's nothing like that to de-stress.
I go for long walks every morning at 6:30. And you know, like 2.5, 3 miles around my neighborhood where it's just a big, huge circle. And that just lets me kind of think about things, but also clear my head and just feel like I can get out and do something rather than sitting in my chair for the rest of the day, Zooming or working through issues. So for me, just getting out and walking is really the most important thing. And I play music. I have my, you know, headphones on and just play music and sing along, of course, because that's part of it, is just getting that out, right? So, but yeah.
This is Doug. I just want to add to that, of course, if you're in New Mexico where we are, the governor has directed when you're out exercising that, make sure you wear a mask. That becomes an issue. But I did have a question for you guys. We're a 2-year junior college, okay, in New Mexico. And we're talking a lot about Zoom and for meetings. How many of you all on your faculties are using Zoom as a medium of learning? In other words, since you may not be able to have in-place learning in the classroom, quote unquote, traditional approach, are looking to Zoom as the way to do that. And those of you, have you found it effective or not? Is there too much use of it? I'll just be interested because there's been quite a discussion here about that particular technology and how it's applying to solve this problem of social distancing.
We've done that at Tech. And so we've all of our classrooms, we took down to 50% of capacity. And then we will have, and faculty are doing it somewhat differently and different. We have in math, they felt it was very important to have synchronous instruction. So 2 classrooms, the professor's in one, but Zooming into the other one. And that, you know, and then they can switch off. And then also having, you know, maybe special Zoom sessions with students 1 day a week where they can do problem sessions or office hours that way. But yeah, we've used Zoom extensively in planning for the courses for this semester. And it has its positive points and there are some drawbacks, but I think, you know, because of the social distancing, we haven't had a choice. We've had to use it.
Douglas, that's a great question. I am Servet Yetin from Quincy College, 2-year community college. Before I address what we do regarding Zoom, I'm gonna say I envy all of you. My days start around 6 a.m. ends the next morning 1. There has been times that I've been sitting and working and campus security looking at, oh, that crazy woman's car. That's the only one left in the parking garage. So yeah, my days have been crazy, crazy, crazy long, non-stop. So I don't know when the end will come. I know it's not gonna come, but I know I'm hopeful things will change. We will adopt, institutions will adopt, government will adopt, students will adopt. I'm hopeful that things will change for us, at least for me. Regarding Zoom, when we did transition from face-to-face to remote mid-March, faculty start getting training using Zoom and start using Zoom in meeting with their students on need base. Some of them loved it, got hooked, and they start actually doing their classes over the Zoom. At the end of the semester, in about late May, early June, we surveyed about 500 students, and our students out loud told us through those surveys that they miss the faculty interactions, because when we moved remote, not everybody did use Zoom. Some people, because we were very conscious of equity and some of our students not having laptops, the Wi-Fi, they may have laptop, but not having a plan for Wi-Fi, that laptop becomes just an instrument, not necessarily for teaching and learning. We even continued our teaching and learning over the phone with some students. We were very aware of the needs of our students. So with the experience of the faculty and the students, we know our student body, they need contact. They need contact with the staff, they need contact with the faculty. However, with the COVID bringing all them back was mission impossible. So what we decided to do for fall, for this fall, is 3 different modalities. Traditional online, just like traditional online, no scheduled sessions. Students go through modules, watch videos, do discussions, etc. An online version, which is kind of blended. We have scheduled 2.5 hours per week for every class, scheduled Zoom sessions. So class, a psychology class may be scheduled 9 to 11:30 on Tuesdays. Faculty member is required to be present over the Zoom. It is optional for the students. There will not be any formal lecturing. It is just faculty presence to guide the students, to engage students, whoever shows up on discussions, maybe in chemistry, solving a couple of chemistry problems to enhance teaching and learning. So it is to enhance teaching and learning, faculty presence over the Zoom, specific times. And as students enroll, they are aware. If we have 15 psychology one-on-one sections, students know section 02 will meet on Tuesday such and such time, section 05 in the evenings on Friday. And the third modality we have is hybrid. And we will see how those work. Maybe when we meet at the end of October or December, I would be happy to report back what will be the results. But the hybrid, we will bring students back 3 times during the semester. We have about 30 sections of hybrid. One at the second week, sometimes during the middle, the dates are known, and sometimes towards the end of the semester, students will come 3 times face-to-face. All other times, there will be actual Zoom lecturing. So the class will be running just like it's face-to-face. Faculty members having a board, writing on the board at the same time, interacting with the students over the Zoom. So these are the 3 modalities. We are happy with the Zoom usage, and we are planning to use it going forward.
Yeah, we use Teams, Microsoft Teams mostly, but we just got a Zoom license because the faculty insisted on wanting to use Zoom. So we have two platforms right now. So I think Zoom is like, most people are on Zoom, right? Yeah, Wisconsin uses WebEx.
We're exclusively on Zoom, and we're running maybe about 1,000 classes right now on Zoom. Yesterday, I think there was some worldwide Zoom breakdown.
Yeah.
And so that's a problem, you know, when you're stuck with one option and then something happens with that option, then everything goes down. But I understand it got back up quickly. And our faculty, we spent all summer giving them new instruction, the IT people, and I really want to thank Joan for talking about thanking people, because I have not thanked our IT team. And they ran about 400 faculty through intense training on Zoom and on hybrid classrooms, and we equipped about 125 classrooms with new technology. So there's just so many things going on, but Zoom has served us, where's Doug? Zoom has served us well, more or less, as we're 100% remote right now, and San Diego just came off of a watch list. So there is some pressure from students and families for us to go to hybrid from remote. And that's a decision that we're gonna make actually today. I'm not looking forward to it.
Gail, may I ask a question? When you say 1,000 sections running over the Zoom, what exactly is being done? Is it lecturing? Is it just optional attend? What is it?
It's lectures in most cases. Our lab classes, our chemistry classes and engineering classes, those faculty members are actually coming into the classroom and teaching the labs from the classroom. I don't know how that's working. They seem to think it's going okay, because we cannot have, until Friday, we could not even have people on campus. So it's lectures, then they're breaking out into Zoom rooms and doing chat. You know, the students have adapted, and so have the faculty. So it's everything that we are teaching. Anything that is instruction right now is going through Zoom.
Thank you.
So there were some questions in the chat about positivity rates and screening.
Yes.
And so you can certainly add an answer in the chat. People were curious about how you're doing. Are you doing gateway testing? What's the positivity rate? We did gateway testing for the students coming to the dorms, and I think we had one positive test. So that's a very, very low rate, but we didn't do the testing ourselves, which I think is a little bit, you know, not quite as good as testing on campus.
I haven't heard what our rate is, because we don't have students. So right now, you know, I think that's an important question to ask. How will we report when we do have students? We do have about 100 students on campus who were housing insecure. And so we did move them to campus. But I don't know if we have determined what our protocol will be on reporting out the testing results. I guess that's going to be a fun meeting this afternoon. I guess we'll add that to the things we need to decide at 3 o'clock today. Thank you all.
Yeah, apparently we're going to have a public dashboard at some point to report.
Actually, I meant that. Thank you. I was being sincere.
Here in Ohio, I'm the president and dean of Mount Carmel College of Nursing in Columbus, Ohio. So we're a sole source nursing program, and we have our students on campus for simulation and skills lab. We did a big boot camp, brought them in, converted our gym to a skills-nasium. So we brought all our beds in there and separated it all out. Students loved it. They just loved that they were getting back to some normalcy. But all our labs are virtual, like you were just talking about, Gail, and all our classes are. We use a variety of products. Part of the health system, they have WebEx, and we have Canvas, so we had Big Blue Button. Then we found out WebEx integrates Big Blue Button because Blue Button cost us so much when everybody was virtual. So, and then we have Teams if you want it. Too much, it makes us schizophrenic, I think, in a way. But I think the main thing you're talking about is we're not testing, and our health system will only test if it's positive. And if a student goes to clinical and they're symptomatic, they have to go to the health center, and then they'll work on getting tested. So far, we've not had any. We've had 1 or 2 disclose that they were positive during the summer because they work as techs. But we're using our product called Maxian. I don't know if you use Maxian or not for tracking your Title IX and other things, behavioral. We're using that. So our students are logging every week. They log if they have to say if they're symptomatic, if they've been out of the state, out of the country, if they've been known to be with somebody, kind of like that same text message you get if you go to the doc and they say, hey, do you have any of these? So we check those. And then to enter our building, you have to have a temperature check, and you must have that on your device, or you must have the PDF of that current. So that's what they bring to clinical. So that's what we've been monitoring. And we find our clinical sites are really the ones that are having to adapt to what the academic setting is doing. So we're talking to our partners and our health partners in regards to students entering the clinical setting so that everyone's asking for something similar, because what we found is everybody wanted something different. So those are the kind of things that we're doing here. And I don't know if that helps anybody with some of the software that you might be able to use. I know in the past, somebody told us a couple apps that are out there that people are using too as well for students to track.
I like the Skillnasium.
Ours are,
Skillsnasium.
It's really good. It's right when you walk in our front door. So because our health system, we're part of Trinity Health nationally, excuse me. And anybody who's working remote, they've asked to stay remote until at least December 31st. So there's talk that will extend beyond that. So unless you're having to come to campus, like me in my room, there's like 4 of us usually on campus and security, and that's it. And so, but the students come in, they're just in the front door. They go to the skills lab. There's a bathroom right there. We have a day porter on. So there's cleaning, social distancing and all that. So they don't have to go upstairs to go find a faculty or anything. We've sort of, to track it too, everybody's got to scan their badge where they go. It's just in case we can get notice of where people have been. But so far it's been okay. We had our first faculty meeting like this, WebEx, and a couple of people said it was probably the best one we've had in a long time. I don't know, maybe it was that we got to business and got to hand versus just chit-chat, but I think everybody misses the camaraderie and the opportunity to just walk down the hall and talk to people. So we're trying to find ways. I instituted a program called Faculty Fellows. A lot of programs do that, where I have faculty fellows that can help other faculty with teaching and technology. And so we've got 5 of them that are going to get ramped up to help. And then we also have interprofessional education and a program for that. So we also encourage faculty. So we're trying to find other ways to encourage faculty to help peer-wise. And then create peer support groups or times or opportunities. So those are some of the things that we sort of put in place that hopefully will help that feeling at a distance. When we did a survey, faculty wanted to know more ways to figure out how to engage students, and students wanted better communication. So we're trying to figure out how to bridge that gap between the two.
Okay, we got a question in the chat. BJ wants to know how are media issues being handled?
Actually, media like if I'm going to do a video, WebEx actually embeds, you can embed and watch videos and do everything. Because we have an iPad.
He probably means like newspapers, reporters. How are you handling local press?
Not an issue. We haven't had any issues.
it's an issue here. We have particularly the newspaper, but also the television stations are hovering.
Well, you got to remember, I got OSU up my corner up here. So they take a lot of heat in the media for all of us. Right now, football and sports are like the big issue. So of course, you know, they're not allowed to play this year. So that's been really the media hype so far. So we really haven't. Actually, I've had a few people who want to interview us on how things are going. Students tried to put a little petition together to say they wanted to come back on campus. And that was kind of across the board. And so, but it's sort of been quiet right now. We did a convocation video virtually. I think that helped. We did a big welcome, had faculty do a big welcome and introduce themselves and not your traditional convocation. Hopefully that kind of helps students feel a sense of community. That's kind of what we wanted to make sure they felt. Let's see, yeah. Considering for
Yeah.
We have a mental health practitioner. We, in particular, have a behavioral health specialist, and so we make sure that she has ample opportunity with each class on the course. She's got a little snippet. She was on the video introducing herself. I was doing a morning chat when we moved to COVID, and then I was doing it daily, and then I went to sort of weekly, and now that the school started, others are doing it. But she'll get on a video, and then we can push that out to folks to be aware that she's available. And so people have taken advantage of her.
So I think we're creeping up on 1 o'clock. I'm sure most of us have meetings coming up at that point. So let me just end by saying, you know, one of the things that I found so valuable is to have other provosts to talk to, because it makes me realize, you know, I mean, you know that everybody's facing the same issues, but you don't realize that everybody's stressed about them, and people have ideas and they have different strategies. And so I found this group, the ACAO, to be particularly important. And what I like about it relative to a lot of groups is that we represent the full spectrum of higher ed, everything from really big research universities to community colleges to regional publics like us to the online institutions and profit institutions. And so a lot of organizations sort of have their own little sector, but we're an organization that invites all provosts from all kinds of institutions in to share ideas. And that's been really, really valuable. So I really appreciate you today. I hope you took away a couple of things. I did. Skills Gymnasium, I'm gonna write down on my list. And we have some more forums coming up. We do them about once a month. And so if you go to our website, you can sign up for those. But thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Good to see you all.
Thank
Nice
you
to
all.
see you.
Thanks.